So in question 1, I asked Tang, do you have many friends? And Tang used a phrase or what might be known as a proverb, a wise saying that she could count her friends or her true friends on one hand. Of course, on one hand, we have only 5 fingers. And what she was really saying was that true friends are hard to find. And our true friends are not great in number. So this is something that we would say to talk about our really good friends. And instead of true, you could just say my real friends, okay? So true friends or real friends, and that you can count them on one hand. In question 3, in part 1, I also asked who was your best friend at school? And in that answer, Tang used the phrase, we still keep in touch. And we still keep in touch is used to describe your relationship with someone else that you may be far away from, somebody that you had a close relationship with at one time, but you don't see that person as much anymore. However, you do contact that person. It could be through social media, it could be by telephone, even by letter, which is a little bit more old-fashioned now. Then in question 4, I asked, are you friendly with your neighbours? Tang's reply was that she bumped into her neighbours sometimes. And when we use this phrasal verb, bump into, it's a really informal way of saying that you met somebody unexpectedly. Now, we can bump into something, so something physical, so I've now just bumped into my whiteboard and I actually made physical contact with the whiteboard. I could bump into a table, the sofa, the TV, anything at all. And that would be a physical contact. However, when we bump into someone, we're not actually bumping into that person. We're just meeting that person unexpectedly. We could bump into someone on holiday, for example. You could bump into somebody at the supermarket. But basically you are meeting somebody that you know unexpectedly in a completely random way. Now in part 2, Tang used a series of idioms in her monologue, in her spoken section. Now the first 3 that she used were we go way back, a smart cookie, and passed her exam with flying colours. Now when we use the idiom we go way back, what you're really saying is that you have a lot of history with another person. Yeah, your relationship is long and you have a lot of shared experience together. So we go way back. I go way back with John, or Sarah and I go way back. So you can use it in that way. If you refer to someone as a smart cookie, you're saying that that person is really clever, or in your opinion, you think that person is really, really clever. So you can use, it can be clever. Of course, smart is a synonym for clever. Okay, so a smart person, a clever person, an intelligent person is a smart cookie. And then also she used the idiom that she passed her exam with flying colours. So if you pass something with flying colours, that means that you did really, really well in that exam. Okay? Now, let's look at the next 3. Okay, so the next 3 are hit a cinema. Tang said that. She also used the phrase bit of a lightweight and grab something to eat. So the first one, hit a cinema. Are we going to walk up to a cinema and start punching the cinema? No. Okay, this is a phrase to mean we're going to go somewhere, So we hit a cinema, we hit a nightclub, we hit a bar, okay? So again, this is idiomatic because you're not really hitting the place, but we always hit a place, okay? But you don't, for example, hit the park. You don't do that. We hit a place where we're going to go and have a lot of fun. Then she used the term bit of a lightweight. Now, by saying lightweight, she really meant that she couldn't take a lot of intensity of something. That's what we're really saying by I'm a bit of a lightweight. Actually, it's usually used with people who can't drink a lot. It's very much a UK term, actually. And yeah, it just means somebody who's a little bit weak in something. Okay, so because she was referring to a horror movie and she got scared really easily by those horror movies, she described herself as being a lightweight. Okay, now the last one was she said she likes to grab something to eat. Now grabbing is, you know, this is the action of grabbing. I grab something quickly, I get it in my hand. We're using the verb grab in a very loose way. We're not literally grabbing. That's why, again, this is idiomatic, not literal. And it just means that we're going to get something to eat quite quickly normally. Just grab some lunch, grab some dinner. Means to get something that's not going to take a lot of time to prepare. We're probably going to buy it anyway. We're just going to eat it quite quickly. So that's grab something. Now in part 3, I asked Tang, what in your opinion makes family important? And she responded by saying that her family were her flesh and blood. Flesh and blood is a term that we use, again, it's idiomatic. It's a term that we use to describe a relation who is a blood relative, okay? This is not to be used with relations that you get through marriage, okay? They are not your flesh and blood, only your blood relation. Someone you can track your bloodline through is your flesh and blood. And it's really saying that when we use that term, you know, they're really important to me because of that blood relationship, okay? And then she used the phrasal verb, they brought me up. Now, I often hear students saying, they raised me up. And that's incorrect. It's either they raised me with no preposition on raised me, or they brought me up. Of course, brought being the past tense of bring, and that gives us our phrasal verb brought up. So that's again what that means. It's your family. They're responsible for bringing you up, and so they brought me up. In question 3, I asked Tang, how do you think the family structure might change in the future? And she replied, I think this trend will continue. So the word trend really describes a pattern that we see. And that pattern if that pattern will continue, then the trend continues. Trends are often a way of describing graphs. This is also really useful for the part 1 of the writing section in your IELTS test, where you will be perhaps describing a graph or a table. And this talk of a trend really describes the general direction of where something is moving. So we could say, for example, in this graph that this line here shows an increasing trend. As we can see from here, the line increases as we go along the x-axis at the bottom, and that's the trend line. Okay, so the trend, the pattern that we are seeing in something, if it will continue or won't continue. And finally, in the part 3 section, I would like to bring your attention to this vocabulary that was used in some of those answers. The word wisdom, Okay, somebody is wise, they have wisdom, so this is a noun, to have wisdom. He has a lot of wisdom, I have wisdom. It means that you really know about something, you have a lot of experience of something, and that is helping you to make better decisions. A pensioner is perhaps a term that might not be used all over the world, but is really prevalent. In fact, prevalent means it's used often in the UK. And this is somebody who is elderly. So it's an elderly person. We can also say OAP is a synonym of pensioner. So an elderly person or an OAP. Again, this is a noun. An OAP stands for old age pensioner. Okay, so that is to describe somebody who's old. We then have three terms for the family. The first one is nuclear family. So the nuclear family is the term that we give to a family that consists of just the mother and the father and the children in the house. If they are the only people living in the house, if there is no cousins, no grandmother, no grandfather, etc., then this is the nuclear family. And the extended family includes all of your other family members outside of the nuclear family. So that might be your cousins, your uncles, your aunts, your grandmother, grandparents, your nieces, your nephews, and so on. But they, in an extended family, we would describe that if they're living outside of your nuclear family home. If it's a joint family, this is the term used to describe a situation where the extended family are living together all in the same property. Now that might be really common in many cultures around the world. In the West, this is far less common than it is elsewhere. But you should be aware of the term joint family because that could come up in a family-based IELTS speaking topic. And lastly, to borrow money. So to borrow is something that is if there's somebody else's property, we get that property for a certain amount of time, and then we give it back to the person who owns it. So for example, we could borrow a book from a library. We go to the library, we take the book for an agreed amount of time, and we return the book. Okay. Now, borrow, we can also borrow money from the bank, or from a friend or from a family member, and we will then obviously use that money, but then after a certain amount of time, we will be giving that money back to the person that gave it to us originally. Now, the person who is giving us the money is lending us the money, okay? So lend or lending is done by the person giving the item, and borrowing is done by the person receiving the item. So that's the end of today's analysis. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it useful. Please just drop me a line in the bottom of the video in the comments box. I will try my best to get back to you on that. And I'll see you on the next topic-based mock test in about a week or so.